Hello, everyone. My name is Keri Ramirez. I am the Managing Director of Studymove, and it's an absolute pleasure to be part of this presentation today. Thanks for joining our fifth key data update of the year. And this is a very, very interesting one, and I will say a very, very important one. Because today we're gonna talk about a very important part of the international education sector that unfortunately sometimes is forgotten. I think that's wrongly forgotten, and it's an essential part of what we do in international education here in Australia. And of course, I'm talking about outbound mobility, or as we refer in Australia, we call it learning abroad. And in particular, I'm going to talk about the results of our latest student survey that measures the preference of Australian university students toward engaging in learning abroad. Basically, this is a survey that collects data from a group of students who already indicate that as part of their degree in Australia, they are thinking about abroad or undertake a virtual experience, which, as we know, is a new part of learning abroad. So there are some very interesting lessons that I'm going to share with you. We are recording this session, so you can have access to the results later on. We're going to share with you the slides as well. And of course, we're going to have time for some questions and answers. But more importantly, if later on you have any particular question or any query more directly towards what you have seen at your institution, please engage with us. We are more than happy to help you. We have been very, very excited to be able just to help the learning abroad sector here in Australia, who has been severely affected by COVID-19 and is still in recovery. And as I said before, and I keep saying, we cannot say that the sector has recovered until outbound mobility also it's on a recovery mode. And it's great to see that we're on their way, but there is a lot of lessons that we also can need to take. So as I said, let me just start with the presentation. You can actually put some things on the chat as well, but probably at the end is when probably we're going to be engaged more in the specific questions that you may have. Okay, excellent. So today, as I said, it's all about looking at the results of this. This is our sixth student survey. And I always would like to thank everybody who has been supporting this survey. This survey has been supported from the beginning by IEAA, the International Education Association of Australia, but also for a large group of universities who have been helping us just to promote this survey, and third-party providers that support the learning abroad sector in Australia. Now, as I said, this is all about outbound mobility. This is all about students who are considering as part of their studies to leave the country and undertake a study experience as part of their degree, or they are thinking about doing the same kind of engagement or learning experience through a virtual channel. And these virtual channels, of course, also have an international environment. Now, I should say, I know that there is a lot of professionals and people who have been engaged in outbound mobility for a long time, but we have also on the call people who haven't been in it. And I think it's very important to highlight why outbound mobility or learning abroad is so important in international education in Australia. And as you know, often I like to start with this chart that shows basically with numbers the history of learning abroad in Australia. It shows one of the most interesting and probably most successful stories in international education that we have here in Australia. And this basically is a chart that shows the number of study experience that we had every year undertaken by Australian university students. This is a chart that shows a significant growth that we actually had for 10 years, moving from 15,000 study experience and reaching close to 60,000 in 2019. It's an extraordinary piece of history of the international education sector here in Australia. It shows the amount of engagement that Australian university students took before COVID-19. And I think this is important just to remember that probably this is where we're aiming for. We're aiming just to bring back those levels of participation that we had before COVID-19. Now, this is not only about student participation. Every student participation, when we actually look into it, has a very important part in the things that we do. And when we go back to 2019, it's important also just to remember that before COVID-19, in the area of learning abroad, Australia was leading across the world. This actually gives you the percentage of undergraduate students who, as part of their degree, actually engaged in an international study experience. And as you see, the Australian experience was one that is very important to remember. It was remarkable. We actually had in 2019, 23% of undergraduate students who participate in a learning abroad experience, who compares significantly higher to other large countries like the US and Canada, and of course, the UK. So that's what we're aiming for. And that's why we are doing this kind of analysis. We are trying to understand and see what's going to be the path of learning abroad in the following years, and how can we go back to this successful story that also put a great balance in the things that we did in international education. Unfortunately, as I said, the narrative of international education has been heavily influenced or actually motivated by the story, and it's a very successful story as well, on the recovery on the number of international students coming back to Australia. But we need to remember how important also is the role of learning abroad. Learning abroad not only brings an important balance in the things that we do in international education, but it has a significant impact in the employability of students. There is a lot of research done that shows that the students who actually travel abroad and undertake these learning experiences actually do really, really well when they actually are moving ahead in their careers. It's also very important because we know that learning abroad is a space where significantly the majority of students are actually female students. And there has been some research that actually show how important it is for female students to take these experiences while they are doing their degree. Because unfortunately, I'm hoping that this is going to change, but unfortunately at this stage, when these female students move into their careers, they have limitations to undertake international experience that will keep them grow and move ahead in their path through their careers. So for this group to have these experiences while they are at uni is extremely important. Finally, it's also very important just to remember the role of learning abroad in the social license, in the way in which we engage with communities, and in the way that we remember that as important is the study experience of an international student, is as important the experience of our students who are looking to undertake a learning experience abroad. All right. Now, going back to the chart, what we are, as I said, trying to bring together with this analysis is to have a better understanding of where are we heading in learning abroad. As we know, since we actually reached nearly 60,000 study experiences in 2019, when we closed the borders, the numbers actually went down. Just probably a handful of the students were able just to still participate in some sort of study experience. The majority of these ones actually did it virtually. And we are trying to figure it out for quite a long time, where are we heading? It was this idea probably a year ago that as a result of having the borders or the international borders closed, it will be a boom of students saying, now I want to live my life. I want to get out of here. I just want to take an international study experience. Others, they were a bit more conservative about it. They said, look, it's going to take some time simply because institutions don't have the resources to offer enough places or programs or experiences to students. So others probably thought that we were in between. At the moment, we don't know. We are actually currently working with AUIDF, the Australian University International Director Forum, just to collect the data to understand what happened in 2022 and to have a better understanding of where we are heading. But in the meantime, we have been doing these surveys. These surveys that we started back in 2020, and we have been doing with the support of IEAA. And the aim of these surveys is just to have a pulse of what the students are thinking. What are the plans about going abroad or not? The original idea of this survey was just to see if, as a result of closing the borders, students will be still keen to go abroad. And the result during the survey was that, yeah, there was actually appetite to do that. Now we actually have been changing a little bit the survey, and we actually have been trying to understand more about what kind of programs, destinations, or what's in mind in the student thinking in how they want to engage with learning abroad. So today we're presenting the results of the sixth survey. As I said, 25 universities in these cycles help us and third-party providers. And once again, thank you so much, because without their support, we wouldn't be able just to put this together. We had an extraordinary response from students this year. We had more than 1,200 student responses. And just so you can actually understand, the survey actually was conducted during May 2023. So these are really, really fresh results. It's pretty much nearly real time what we actually presenting to all of you. And we actually accelerate the crunching of numbers because we know that in July, a lot of universities will be engaging with the students. So we actually want to give you some insights on what we identify in the survey this year. All right. The survey actually covers many, many things. We have a lot of questions, and in general, what we're actually trying just to understand are a couple of very important things. Of course, the plans that the students have, what kind of programs they want to take, the duration, what kind of destination, but also we have been measuring how important is learning abroad as part of their degree and as part of their future employability. And on that, I'm going to talk a lot about it in this particular session. We also incorporate sections in regards to virtual experiences because we want to learn how Australian university students are engaging or not in this particular space. And in this particular survey, we include a couple of questions, and I really appreciate when universities come back and say to me, look, Keri, we're actually looking at this. Could you please bring this into the survey? And we actually, as a result of that feedback, we include questions on the effects of cost of living, that it could be the Australian cost of living, but also the cost of living of going abroad. But also, apparently, some Australian universities have been a soft demand, or they haven't seen the recovery in the number of students engaging in this particular space as we were expecting previously. So we actually put a few additional questions, or we tweak a few of the questions so we can actually get some intel in this particular area. Okay. Now, just to let you know, this is the distribution that we receive from the survey. From that 1,200 students, the responses by university look like that. And it looks a little bit messy, I know, but that's exactly what we actually were aiming for. We are happy to see that it's a quite diverse, from a university point of view, a group of students. Also by discipline area, we identify is quite diverse. So it's really giving us the confidence that we are giving you today a good sample of what in Australia, Australian university students who have shown interest for learning abroad are basically thinking at this stage, okay? Now, also interesting for you to know is that the vast majority of students who participate in this survey are undergraduate students, only a small percentage of postgrad, which we have noticed always that it has been a challenge. I think postgraduate students are doing other things. So significantly is undergraduate students, which once again represents really what we have seen is the student participation in learning abroad. Also very significant, and once again, represents really what we have seen in learning abroad is the amount of female students. 67% of the respondents of this survey are actually female students in comparison to 31% male. And just a reminder that it's not only domestic Australian university students who undertake learning abroad experiences, also international students do that as part of their degree. And in fact, nearly 20% of the students who respond to this survey are actually international students. And I always like to remind everybody this because this is not a domestic international only thing. It's actually students who are doing their degree in Australia, as well, university degree in Australia. Okay. All right. So today I'm just going to talk about student preferences, the importance of learning abroad, and also the role of virtual. And we are working in bringing for everybody a more comprehensive report that will actually provide all the responses. We actually are hoping that we're also going to share some of these additional analysis at the IEAA Learning Abroad Forum. They're still working on that, and we just put a proposal. Hopefully it will happen. But just to let you know, this is just something that we think at this stage is relevant. And as I explained before, we actually accelerate the process because we know that in July, when semester 2 for many universities start, during orientation, you get students who already start asking this question. So we just want to give you some insights that are valuable at this stage, but later on, we'll provide a large amount of results, okay? All right. Starting with what I will think is the main part of this survey. In the past, the student preference side of things, it was quite interesting for everybody in the sector, but there has been a massive change in this particular part of the survey, and I'm just gonna explain you why. Since we started in 2020, we have been asking students about how important is to undertake an international study experience as part of their degree. And we always had very high numbers. What you're going to see on the screen is the percentage of respondents who said that is either important for their degree or fairly important. Now, what I want to just highlight here is that unfortunately, since 2021, we have seen a drop. The numbers are still high, but we have seen a drop from 82%, then 81% in last year, and now 79% on the importance of learning abroad. There are a lot of theories of why this is the case. Some universities tell me that because we haven't had a strong cohort of students going abroad, and the word of mouth effects of students who went and they got excited, they have a great experience, are not as big. Maybe this is what is leading at some students saying, oh, it's important, but not as much as we have seen in the past. Now, the one that for me is a little bit of a concern is the question on employability, because also since 2020, we have been asking about how important is learning abroad to develop your employability skills. And once again, we have seen a drop, now reaching the lowest level we have seen of only 72% saying is important or very important. Now, once again, the number is not bad because 72% of very important or fairly important in any survey is really good, but it's just important just to understand what is the trend that we are looking at. And it seems that in terms of employability, something that has changed significantly is the type of students that we have at university. And for the first time in a long time, we actually include again the question, are you currently employed? And for me, the results were unbelievable. 68% of the students in the survey said that they, as part of their studies, while they are studying, they're actually working either full-time or part-time. Only 30% of the students said, no, I'm only focusing on my studies. So we actually have a large group of students, a really large group of students who are actually juggling jobs at university at the same time. Now, we haven't seen that before, and I think this is changing everything quite significant. In fact, the last time we asked this, it was actually in September 2020. And just to put it in comparison, back in September 2020, only 36% of students were working while studying. Now it's nearly double the number. So it's a very different group of students that we have. And I think that the fact that now they have jobs, the fact that now they actually have access to a very tight labor market is making them think that learning abroad is not as important because they already have a job. So actually, probably nothing is important. It's not about learning abroad. I already have a job, so why should I care about this? Now, to confirm this, it was very important to look at the actual data. And I think this chart, in a way, describes the situation of the territory or the university sector in Australia. This comes from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. This is obviously macroeconomic metrics, but it really shows what's happening here. As you can see, from many, many years when youth unemployment was around 15 and 10%, now we actually have historical low levels. It's levels that we have never seen before. So now more than ever, we've seen young Australians actually working. And this chart in particular is not about the youth unemployment rate. Youth unemployment rate is about 7.6%. This is actually youth unemployment of individuals who are actually attending university full-time. And as you can see, the level is really, really low. It's only 5%. What is even more interesting is when we actually look this by sex. And as you can see, female students, which is the blue dot, it's in even lower levels. Actually, female is actually 3% of unemployment. And I'm raising the metric of a female because we know that learning abroad is an area where the majority of students are actually female students. So we actually are facing very, very different conditions that we had previously. In the past, when students were not engaging as much in the labor market, I think that it was a group of students who, first of all, they realized how important it was to have a learning abroad experience to raise their employability skills to find a job. But nowadays, that because of the conditions in the labor market in Australia is not the case, they're actually moving away from that idea. And I think this is a very important lesson for everybody, because for a long time, the narrative of learning abroad in Australia has been attached to employability, and for good reasons. But it seems that now the students are actually moving away simply because they don't think that they need that additional tool to find a job. Once again, you can see on the chart, because they already have jobs. And that's something that I think is going to change significantly the way in which we again engage with this group of students. And on that basically note, we have been asking for a long time, what are the main reasons that you want to do an international study experience? And employability has always been up there, but what always has been number one is personal growth. And I think that's a really good lesson, and something that it may be the way in which we're going to engage with these students more effectively in the future. Personal growth is a unique, your experience at university is so unique, is once in your life, most of the time, but most of the time, you are at uni only once, and this is your chance. So don't do it only because of employability, do it because this is a personal experience, an opportunity to grow. And just want to raise that, because I think it shows completely how much things have changed and how quickly the labor market conditions have changed significantly. And of course, the question is how long we're going to actually have this. And I'm going to go back to the chart for how long we're going to have these low levels of unemployment. There's a big debate in the world of economics here in Australia, according to places like the Reserve Bank. They reckon that it's going to take another 18 months for this to change. Other economists, they think that it's going to be probably 12 months. But I will expect that at least 12 months, if not 18 months, we're going to have these conditions. So this is a good opportunity just to see how we're going to rephrase and how we're going to re-engage, because the narrative of employability and learning abroad, it seems that it's not resonating as much as other things, as I said, personal growth. Okay. Anyhow, we can have a conversation about that, but I thought it was very, very interesting just to see how different is the group of students that we have now in comparison to what we had previously. Now, moving ahead in the survey and talking about the student preferences, I just want to share with you three main parts. One is destination, the other one is program type, and the other one is the duration. Starting with duration, we have been asking students to give us an indication of for how long they want to be abroad, if they go abroad. And things haven't changed actually significantly. Probably I should say things have not changed at all since we asked that question last year. As you can see here, the majority of students are thinking about 6 months. And actually, if we group these 6 months or more, is close to 60% of students who are thinking about that long-term duration of program that they want to undertake. Now, this gives me two particular ideas. One is if we are actually facing a group of students who are actually very committed to work while studying, maybe short duration programs will be more appealing to them. Maybe a summer program will be more appealing, something that they feel that they will not lose their job because they're going to be away just for probably 1 or 1.5 months or even 2 months. Maybe that's something that could help student participation. Now, on the other hand, what I think is interesting, and I'm going to let universities to ask that question to their own group of students, is why they're still committed to that 6-month exchange program, which is usually what they are thinking about it. What is that is driving them to them? Is because that's what they think is the only option, or is their preferred option? Because it seems that it might be something of a lack of understanding on the wide range of options that our students could take. So I think that is something that is important just to consider. And aligned to when we ask about destinations, this is very much the same results that we had last year. We also ask which ones are your preferred study destination. And as you can see here, what students are telling us is that they want to go to the traditional destinations like the UK or Europe, which we know that, in fact, where students are actually going is more to the Indo-Pacific region. That's where programs like the New Colombo Plan, which is extremely successful, or a lot of the university programs are ran. So we see that there once again some inconsistencies before what the students want instead of destination versus what is really available. Okay. And once again, this is very similar when we ask students, although it has been a small correction here. When we ask students what kind of programs they want, 60% are still thinking about a traditional exchange. Now, what it has been quite interesting is that study tours, and that is giving me an idea that this is related to the opportunity to change duration. But study tours last year was number 4. An internship was number 2. So now more students are actually considering study tours rather than an internship. Once again, I think because they don't see that internships will help in their employability, but it's not that they don't think that they're going to help. It's they don't think they need that additional help to be employable because they're already got a job. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So anyhow, what is important is that study tour is now number 2, and internship is number 3. Which once again, when we look at the data, the latest data from the Australian Universities International Director Forum, we know that exchange are not the main area for student participation, is other areas. So once again, and I think this is something that we identified last year, there is an information gap. And the good news is that students and universities can actually work in better ways to receive this information. We know that it has been very, very hard for universities to bring everything together. A lot of them have been in rebuilding mode for the last 12 months, but I think we're going to see that more and more this information gap is going to reduce as we see universities bringing new resources to engage more effectively and in the learning abroad strategies. But the gap is still there. And probably it will be interesting just to see how duration plays a role for this new group of students who are basically highly employable. We're talking about a group of students that move from being job seekers to job finders in many ways. And that's one of the big lessons that the survey is giving us this year. Now, finally, we have been measuring the role of virtual. And it has been important just to measure the role of virtual because when we had the borders closed, of course, virtual was the only plan B. And it has been important just to measure if we had received any traction or not in the use of virtual. Now, unfortunately, and I think it's unfortunate, virtual is really losing a lot of traction. When we ask students this year about the awareness of virtual experiences, the awareness, as you can see on the screen, is actually going down. We know that a lot of Australian universities are actually not even providing any virtual anymore. This could be probably not only a decision made by the university, it's actually a decision based on what some students are telling you. And actually, this chart basically says that when we ask the students, are you considering undertaking a virtual global experience? The levels are actually still very low, 23% in comparison to 28%. When we saw the 28% last year, it was like, well, it could still be there. 23%, I think it shows that the trend, unfortunately, is going down. I think that what these numbers are telling us is that virtual are still going to play a role. They are not deleted, but not as significant probably as we thought about 2 or 3 years ago. Some universities tell me that that's how Australian universities are. They want the face-to-face experience. They're not interested in virtual. It's kind of like a cultural preference thing, like we are a country of travelers. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but this is what students are telling us. And I think it's important that we understand that virtual is something that will still be there. We know that there are some benefits in virtual experiences for students who cannot afford to go overseas, or they are first generation of students, or in this particular area. And what I'm sharing here is just a photo that I took during NAFSA a few weeks ago in the posters area. And there were quite a few of these posters talking about remote and hybrid work and how important it is for students just to obtain those skills in that area. And yep, when we think about it, a lot of companies are going to look for graduates who know how to actually work remotely or hybridly. So for that kind of space, I think that hybrid and remote are always going to play an important role. So I think that basically what this chart is telling us is that it's not going to be gone. It's just going to play a role, but not a significant role as probably we were thinking 2 or 3 years ago. But time will tell. Things can change significantly. And also, if we think about it, if we actually are engaging now with the students who are 65 or 60% who are actually working, maybe this actually will be a good channel for them. But I let universities to decide, and it depends, of course, in the group of students, who everybody, of course, has a different group of students. All right, so I think that for me, the effects of labor markets is probably one of the big highlights of this survey. And I hope that it's something that is valuable for universities just to confirm, because what we are showing you is a complete view of Australia as a sample, but maybe across each university will be different. But I think it would be very useful just to confirm if this is the case, if these effects of students juggling university degrees and jobs at the same time is actually having an effect in student participation. Because if it does, this is a really good time just to readdress the message, readdress how we're going to actually be engaging with this student cohort, which it seems is quite different to what we had in the past. It seems that the information gap is still there. It might be that it's something that every year we're going to identify, but it's something that universities should be aware that, and I'm sure you are aware of this, that universities and candidates, they need to basically go through the path to understand between what's their wish list to what is actually feasible for them. So it's important just to put efforts just to reduce that information gap. And I'm sure that a lot of you are already working on that. But I think that what is also very important to address, and this is nothing that the survey actually showing us, but we know that that's the condition of the university sector, is that in order to increase the student participation in outbound mobility and really embrace the benefits of outbound mobility, institutions, they need to provide additional resources. I think that something that we're currently doing is just in a different analysis, trying to measure that, if they're still not at the level that universities had back in 2019. And hopefully we are in the path just to get, once again, the resources that are required to support effectively learning abroad here in Australia. All right, so I hope that this short presentation was useful for you. As I said, I just was trying to pick up some things that I thought were relevant at this stage. We are currently working in providing a more comprehensive view of all the things or that we identify in the survey, but I thought it was important just to do it now because the timing, I think, is correct. So if anybody has any particular questions, I think we're going to have some time for that. Or if you prefer, I'm going to stop sharing now. Or if you prefer just to contact us, more than happy to do that. Okay. On that note, thank you so much for your time. I hope it was useful to have this short session. I think that there are some valuable lessons there. I think that it's interesting to see how the learning abroad sector is slowly but rebuilding. And we're just going to try to bring something that will help you just in this recovery. And I'm sure that we're going to get there sooner than we're expecting. If you have any more questions, we'll be sending, well, please get in touch with me and we'll send all the slides, we'll send the recorded version, and hopefully we'll see each other face to face very soon. Thank you again for your time, and we'll be in touch very soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Keri.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Keri.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.